Hello, patron, and welcome back to my life. Writer Wednesday, where I give you my tips and advice on the art and the business of writing and tell you how I do what I do as an indie author. Today's talk is born out of a conversation I had with my good friend Amy Teagan, and I struggled for a while to figure out the best and the most palatable way to put this. But eventually I threw out the palatable way and just went with the best way, and that is this. As a writer, you have to give a shit about your reader's experience. I've been around the game for a few years now, and so has Amy, and we talk a lot, and we've commiserated on many things over the years. We don't like people who have the Kindle Gold Rush mentality. We don't like people who are more focused on learning how to market any book, no matter how bad it is, than they are about learning how to write a book that is good enough to, deserve good marketing. And what most of this stuff boils down to is just that, giving a shit about the experience you are giving to your reader. Here's a sad fact I've observed in our community. Most indie authors don't read. Kind of at all. Period. I think I read about 12 books last year, and honestly, I'm very embarrassed about that. I'm planning on reading far more this year. I've read 4 so far in January, which will set me up to read about 50 this year, which is much more in the range that I want to be in. But when I mention to most indie authors that I read 12 books last year, they'll kind of laugh and go, haha, better than me, I didn't read any books last year. You can't do that, okay? Please don't do that. And what's weird is that it is repeated so often in the indie community how you have to read a lot in order to be a good writer. Stephen King gives that advice in his book On Writing, which is like the Bible for the indie author community, but I feel like no one actually does it. And giving a shit about your reader experience doesn't just equate to reading a lot. That's part of it, but not all of it. It also means analyzing every part of the experience to make sure it's great. Like, your book itself is an experience, and a lot of indies, maybe because they don't read very much, tend to create books that don't feel like books. I'm not really sure how to put it any better than that, but there's a reason that books are the way they are. There's a reason they tend to have chapters that are broken up a certain way and which usually have a consistent length. There's a reason text is justified and not just left aligned. There's a reason the first line of each paragraph is indented and usually by a 1/4 inch. There's a reason that page margins are the way that they are. So many indie authors seem to focus on the tricks of outlining or easier ways to figure out your story and to get it told and to get a good plot that they forget that their book is still a book. Yeah, you can play around with all of these elements to create an effect. The book House of Leaves is like the ultimate example of this, where it just goes all crazy in terms of what really is a book. But it's like storytelling. You have to know the rules in order to break them well. Otherwise, you just look inept and unprofessional and like an idiot. But this also extends, this is not just a formatting and a print layout thing. Indies sometimes don't even want to do print books, and that's fine. It extends to writing. I feel like indie authors, some of them anyway, feel like good writing, character development, plot, themes, they feel like these things are things that only the traditional publishing industry still clings to, and that they don't really need to put out a book, even though that's what a book is. Traditional publishing is clinging to an outdated business model. Yes, actually several outdated business models and practices. But for the most part, they're still really kicking our ass when it comes to good storytelling. And they shouldn't be. We are the nimble ones. We should be the advance guard. Indies should be pioneering new ways to tell good stories, not new ways to sell bad stories. But the one thing traditional publishing still has is an entire team, or sometimes entire teams of people whose entire job it is to sit down and analyze every part of a story and a book and everything and figure out a way to make each part of it a better experience for the reader. Yes, so they can sell more copies, but they do that. And I realize that especially when we are starting out, we can't have a whole team. I have multiple editors now for the first time in my life. That was not possible when I started. But we have to try to simulate that. We can't not do even our own analysis of our work and how to make it a better experience for the reader. We can't just find a friend or a fan online who happens to know spelling and grammar better than some random Joe off the street and have them do a proofread of our book and call that, like, development or story editing. That's just not good enough. You, as an author, you have to write for yourself. Yes, you have to write a book that you are happy with and that you're proud of. You are the first quality check you have to pass. But you're not the last. Once you've got a book that you're proud of, you have to turn it into a book that will deliver that reader experience. That means you have to think about every part of it. The characters, the plot, the story, what you're trying to say, and the book itself, the physical book, whether it's a print book or the ebook, and you have to evaluate how to make those parts better for the reader. I'm telling you right now, if you don't do that, readers can tell. I can tell. I can tell when an indie author is just like, okay, slapping it together, sticking it out there, and I can tell when a traditional publisher has, like, all of the pieces in place and everything's coordinated. And I can tell when an indie author maybe isn't at that traditional level of quality, but when they've really dug in and they've really tried to make every part of it as awesome as they can. And even if they don't hit that 100% that a traditional, or 98% that the traditional publisher will usually hit, if they have tried, if I can see the work they've put into it, and they also have the indie benefit of being, like, more forward-thinking with their story and their everything and everything surrounding the book itself. That is the perfect reading experience. That hits everything. It's better than traditional. It's better than most indie. I am constantly aware of how far I have to go with improving my reader experience to getting it to that level of my favorite books where everything just goes together so beautifully, and I am constantly working on that. That's the entire restoration project. That's why I haven't written a new book in 4 months. 4 months? 5? It's been a while. So please, take the time to evaluate what you're doing and why. Yes, read more, but also look at what you've already got. Look at what you're writing and make sure that there is a reason for it and that it is as well developed in every part, in every compartmentalized section of your storytelling, that every part is as good for the reader as it can possibly be. And if you go and you analyze your work against other work, other indies and other traditional, and you notice that, like, every book does things a certain way and you're not really sure why, analyze it, figure it out, Google it, do some research. But while you're doing that analysis, maybe just default to doing it the way everyone else does it, if for no other reason than you don't want to just violate reader expectations. The only way to build a long-lasting author career is to give your reader a great experience over and over again, consistently. However much time you invest in making that happen, I promise you it will be worth it. More so than just about anything else you can do. That's it for today, patron. If you have something you want me to talk about in these Writer Wednesday videos, please drop it in the comments below. I'm here to help you with anything you might be struggling with. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next Wednesday. Bye!